Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Well, thank God for quotes throughout this quarantine because it has given me so much content to talk about. And sadly, this time around, it's negative quotes. The 76ers are in the news. Ben Simmons is in the news. Most of the time when that happens, as of late, it hasn't been anything positive. So I remember listening to Elton Brand a couple months ago, I guess at this point, say he would be very optimistic that Ben Simmons would be able to go when things returned. And I thought to myself, what the hell are you talking about? Very optimistic. That's not firm. I need firm. He'll be ready to go. And it made me question based off the fact that I know how this organization runs. I understand how the communication is so poor between the medical staff, the coaches, to the media, to the fans. It's abysmal. It's a flat-out disgrace. So when he said very optimistic, it triggered something in my brain saying something's not right. Something is not right. And clearly, I was right to some extent because Brett Brown was interviewed by Mannix of Sports Illustrated, and listen to this quote by Brett Brown. My opinion, and this is not confirmed yet, is that we are going to be able to inch him back into this. Is he going to be 100%? I don't expect that. But I think he is going to be available. So much to get into when it comes to that quote. And there's some other things that I thought was interesting in this piece. But before we dive into this, do not forget that this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, they are home to solar experts in both residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly. They use high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. They even take care of all permitting and fees right in their office, saving you the hassle of extra paperwork. We are talking $0 electric bills. That's insane. Make sure you check out their information in the description. All right. The first thing that popped, by the way, to me, is he starts off by saying, my opinion, and this is not confirmed yet, is that we are going to inch him back into this. This is not confirmed yet? What does that mean? When he says this is not confirmed yet that we are going to inch him back into this, does that mean there's a possibility that there's no inching back at all? As if there's a way that he doesn't perform or get on the court whatsoever? See, most people think, hey, it's not confirmed yet that we'll inch him back. Maybe he'll just go full throttle. No. I go the opposite way. Don't tell me that it's even up in the air, that there's even a little speculation that he won't be able to return at all. Now, if we go back to what he posted on Instagram and Twitter about a week or two ago, Ben Simmons this is, he was working out in the gym, he was all beef, he was all buff, and he was taking some jumpers. Those pictures would make it seem as if he'll be able to play, right? I mean, you can't lift that heavy of weights. This is something that D-Ray brought up to me during the Processed podcast that we do. Look, if he was that banged up, if his back injury was such a serious issue, how was he lifting all of those weights? How was he getting jacked up to that level? Because he definitely looks way bigger than he did before. And he was doing specific workouts in those pictures where if your back is killing you, there's just no way that he's going to be able to do those type of exercises and do those workouts. So those pictures and this quote, they don't go together at all. Now, if the quote was, is he going to be 100%? I don't expect that, and that's the only quote involved, I would understand it. Because, yeah, you know what? You have a back injury. You're in so much pain you're throwing up. You will not be 100%. 100%? No. I don't think he'll be 100% for the rest of his life. Ask anyone with back problems. Once they have it, they're in pain to some extent for the rest of their life. So, yeah, they're not going to be 100%, but we're going to inch him back into this. This isn't confirmed yet. He's going to be available. These are the type of words that it makes me cringe. And this isn't a Brett Brown problem for him saying this. It's more so, I can't stand this organization and the way that they give out information, or the lack of information that they give out. Why do they have to try and hide all this stuff? We don't want to tell the media. We don't want to tell the fans. We're going to keep it in-house. I always go back to the scenario where I was at the Sixers game as a media member, and I think this was actually the last game before the NBA shut down. Ben Simmons gave an update, and I keep going back to this because it's so important to drill into everyone's head when it comes to the disgrace of the Sixers and the way that they speak to the fans and give out information. It was a simple question. Ben, did you get a cortisone shot? And he looks around, looks at the PR team. He doesn't know what to say. And then the PR team comes out. Next question. He's not going to answer that. It's a simple question. Did you get the shot? Did you get the shot? Yes or no? Why does it have to be that way? So I'm not mad at Brett Brown for saying this. I'm sure he was informed to some extent to say certain things, knowing how this organization operates. He's not trying to make an excuse. He's not trying to save his job by saying Ben Simmons isn't 100%. This is just how the team goes by their business when it comes to medical updates and injuries. And I lose sleep over it. Isn't that pathetic? I lose sleep over the way that they do it, that they handle it. It's ridiculous. This is part of Chris Mannix's story, not Brett Brown speaking, but he says, I wanted to run my theory past Brett Brown, the Sixers coach. The first question, what's the deal with Simmons? Last month, GM Elton Brand said he was very optimistic that Simmons, who missed the Sixers' final 8 games with a back injury, would be able to return. Going back to that, I knew it. I sensed it. I felt it. The way Elton Brand said he was very optimistic, it wasn't demanding enough. He allowed the door to be open. He left the door open for speculation. And when they do that, you know. The pictures in the gym, though, it makes me think the complete opposite. It's hard for me to believe that Ben Simmons is going to be some way, in some shape or form, creeping back into it, playing 15 minutes a night, 18 minutes a night, then 22 minutes a night. You're going to need the dude to compete, right? I mean, you're going to need that guy. If this team has any chance in whatever crazy scenario that gets thrown their way during this Orlando, ESPN, Walt Disney World mess, they're going to need him to play. Without him, they actually have no shot. What he can provide defensively, it's magical. It's lethal. It's elite, and they are going to need it. If they won't have him, if he's not going to be able to perform, if you're going to get 20 to 25 minutes of Ben Simmons, good luck. They are absolutely screwed. This is a big playoff series or big playoff run for Ben Simmons specifically because the last couple years, he's been a liability in the half-court set. He's been stuck in the dunker spot at times, and he was useless in certain situations, and you can't be this much of an impact player and then in the postseason, in certain spots, be so much of a brutal player and someone who isn't able to contribute when the team needs it most. So this is such a huge time for his development, and you're going to have to get him out there. If he's going to miss time or not play a certain amount of minutes based off of this, well, that's going to be crushing. We talk about it over and over again when it comes to these two players in Ben and Joel growing, adding to their game, taking these moments and learning from them, whether it's a really crushing, heartbreaking loss or it's a big win in the first round against a team that is respectful, right? I mean, you're going to have to learn in these moments. That's what they are there for. We watched Michael Jordan do it, lose to the Pistons, work out in the offseason, lose to the Pistons. I mean, the dude was just losing to the Pistons all the time, and he kept learning from those moments. It taught him how to work hard in the offseason, and then he blossomed blossomed and groomed into the Michael Jordan that people speak about today. You got to have those moments. And if Ben isn't going to be able to give you the 40-plus minutes that he can, well, that's going to take away from what this time is all about for the two players that we need the most. Now, there's a lot of people out there who are just not buying this, and it's not really going to affect anything. This is just Brett saying some stuff, and who knows? You might be right. There might be a scenario where he just plays. He goes out there. Maybe they do inch him back into things, and I'm using air quotes because those first handful of games in the regular season, he won't be logging 38 minutes. He won't be logging 40 minutes. He'll just kind of cruise back into things, and that's how I feel a lot of these players are going to be handled, to be honest with you, because it's not natural. What happened in this season, you put a stoppage on everything. That's not standard. You're going to have to kind of work your way back into things when you go back and play those regular season games. So, I just don't know fully how to look at this. Is this some sort of crazy thing they're throwing out there to trick other teams? You think the Greek Freak and Milwaukee and Chris Middleton are now thinking, oh, the Sixers, they have nothing, and then they take them lightly? Or Jimmy Butler's laughing and he takes them lightly? Or the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Brad Stevens, they're taking the Sixers lightly? They're throwing a smoke screen at people? That's sickening to think about. Of course, I don't really believe that that's the thing. I'm just looking at all the different avenues right now. It would be an embarrassment. You do that in football, right? Doug Peterson speaks to the media. I don't know if he's going to be ready, knowing that there's a 98% chance that that specific player will be ready. But this is different. We're talking about going into Orlando after a pandemic, after a back injury, and hearing all these comments from different people within the organization and not knowing what the hell is going on. So I put up a poll, and I put up that quote about what Brett Brown said, the 100%, and this is not confirmed, inching him back. You had two options. What the hell? Or he will be fine. And people are torn right now. It's getting tossed up. I mean, it's a little bit of 50-50 at the moment. There's a chance that he's fine, and I wouldn't be shocked based off of the terrible communication that we have seen in the past. I'm just basing this off of history. I'm basing this off of what they have given us over the last how many years or so. So it's possible that he's perfectly fine, and this is all just trash. I go back to it, though. I go back to the key words that I am nitpicking throughout certain statements from different people within the organization. It took us how long to hear that he was throwing up? There was also that report, remember, by Jackie McMullen, who was a very respected reporter in the league, and she was speaking with the Simmons family, and she was speaking with the crew. And it came out that Ben is fine. His back is fine. Well, what is fine? What does fine really mean? They wouldn't even answer the question on if he took a cortisone shot or not. How do I know what fine is? So all I'm saying is essentially it's up in the air with him. It's up in the air. You don't truly know, and I don't think you ever will know until the time comes when he's playing, when it's the postseason, and you either see him out there for a long time or you don't. Or his back is not good enough to compete. Oh, it's crazy. All right, so there's some other things in this article as well. Here's a little piece that was written. Conditioning, Brown says, is the key to success in a resumed season. A fitness base is everything, Brown said. Brown would like his team to be at a B+ by the time they leave for Orlando and work their way up from there. Mentally, there are different challenges. A real fear is the question of if guys want to be there, Brown said. None of us can dismiss that. It's human nature. Coming out of a pandemic to assume everyone will be gung-ho about going would be very naive. I get what he's coming from. He's just speaking from the heart. He's being true. Does everyone want to be there? You're talking about being locked down, season being on hold, and now you got to go back and start competing for an NBA final. But I will say this. I think you're getting a vibe where those teams that don't really have a chance, the Orlando Magics, the Washington Wizards, and then you go over to the West and there's some other teams out there that they're fighting for that 8th seed. Those type of players, I don't think, or those type of teams with players on it, I don't think that they are really so juiced to get back, so ready to get back to work, and they're just excited to be able to fight for a possible playoff spot to maybe win an NBA Finals, which we all know would never happen when you're that low of a seed. I think those type of teams, yeah, they might not be feeling it. But if you're in the area of playoff run conversation, so the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia Sixers, the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors, the Lakers, the Clippers, those type of teams, I think you have a different mindset than the rest of the crew. You have a chance. I mean, you flat out do. You have a chance. We've seen the Sixers be awful, pathetic, and really tough to watch this season, but nobody knows how this is going to play out. Nobody knows what teams are going to be able to come out playing better than others, or who will be slow and who will just be flat out red hot. I mean, there's just so many variables thrown into this, and they're question marks, and it's so unique, weird, and odd that you can't tell how it's going to play out. So I think if you're in the range of the teams that I just mentioned, where the shot of winning a title is not as low as the Orlando Magics and the Washington Wizards, who are not going to be able to squeak in, I can almost guarantee it. If you're on that side of things, I can't imagine you having a different mentality other than let's go. Let's go. I don't think Joel and Ben have that problem, but maybe he's on to something. Maybe I'm thinking of some role players on the Sixers. Maybe they're not feeling it. I know Furkan's feeling it. A couple months ago, I saw him post his buzzer beater against the Portland Trail Blazers with a game-winning shot, and he said he missed it. Furkan Korkmaz. Ah, the beauty times. Oh, the good times. Furkan dropping 30-plus at the Wells Fargo Center. Everyone rising to their feet. Absolutely incredible. But I'm thinking, I can't imagine someone like Norvell Pell not wanting to be there. He's fighting for an NBA job. He's excited to be in the NBA more so than ever. Mike Scott, he was actually turning it on late there. Maybe Al Horford. Maybe Al Horford. Unless Al Horford wants to prove to everyone, we can do this. I'm not a bum. I'm a playoff guy. And that kind of transitions here right into another piece. This is Chris Mannix. Indeed, it's redemption time for Philadelphia. They won't make threes, but no one will. I don't know exactly what that was in reference to. They can play bully ball with Embiid, who Brown would like to run out for 38 minutes a night. They can suffocate you defensively with Embiid, Simmons, and Josh Richardson. Al Horford, a disappointment in his first season in Philadelphia, has been terrific in recent years in the playoff games. Games with scores in the mid-90s, the Sixers were built for that. So is Brown buying my logic? And here's Brown's response. I wouldn't say it the way that you said it, Brown said, laughing, but I do think we have a team built for the playoffs. Fine, Brett. We'll talk again in the finals. I actually like the way that he ended that. That was strong. Al Horford has been a problem for teams in the playoffs. I can't stand we are built for the playoffs anymore. I've been on the record saying that. It bothers me. It annoys me. Shut up. Although I do know that it's reality. I do know that the style of the game benefits the Sixers roster in the playoffs more so than the up and down pace in the regular season where it's not the same, where you don't plan for your team, for your opponent, like you would in a playoff series. Study and film. You don't really get the chance to study your opponent in the regular season like you do so intensely when you are talking about playoff ball in big moments, possession by possession. It's different. Al Horford running up and down the floor, it's different than when you're in the half-court set. So, he says here that Al Horford was a disappointment in his first season in Philly, but has been terrific in recent years in the playoffs. And once again, that's Chris Mannix, the writer of the story, claiming that, and he's not wrong. But when Brett responds with, we were built for the playoffs, all right, well then it's time. It's time then. It's time to show, once everything returns, that let's do it. Because while I agree that it's true, I am bothered by it, and it's put up or shut up time. Now, people will use the excuse of, dude, look what happened. And that's fair. This is unbelievable. The NBA on hold. 2020. It's crazy. But at the same time, let's go. You had time to regroup. You had time to maybe implement some new stuff that you wouldn't have had the time to do without this stoppage. And I get it. It's not as if you're together being able to do it. But based off of the way Brett Brown has been speaking in that Zoom conference specifically, he's been studying other teams. He's been preparing. He's been working on things. You had time to work on things. And yeah, it takes time to implement that and for the team to be able to do it and be able to knock it down and be able to perfectly get it done in games. I'm not making it seem like, hey, you come up with a scheme or a plan and then it just instantly happens. Yeah, there is a time where it actually has to gel and mold together. But you're going to have some of that mini training camp popping back up, hopefully, if things move forward. You had time. And I'm excited to see what actually ended up being worked out. It's gonna be fun to watch. This is what we'll finish with in terms of the article. A first-round exit would have led to a summer of speculation about the long-term viability of Simmons and Embiid partnership. Does Brown see it that way? In so many words, yes, Brown said. How can you not? It's a melting pot of opportunity, albeit under crazy sort of conditions. So, it's possible that the Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, they can't work together conversation pops up if they lose in the first round. I can't stand it. I'm sorry. I just can't stand that conversation. I think one of the biggest brutal parts about the NBA playoffs sometimes is the game-by-game over-insane reaction. And what I mean by that is, if the Sixers, I'm just throwing out a scenario. If the Sixers win Game 1 against the Celtics in the first round of playoffs, people talk about that win as if, wow, they can do that every single game and they're going to win that series. If they lose Game 2 and the Celtics tied up 1-1, now it's to an extreme of, oh, the Sixers are not going to be able to win Game 3. If they play like that again, there's no way. It's so extreme game by game. It's almost too extreme. Look, if they win Game 1 and lose Game 2, that's fine. I mean, that means they played a bad Game 2, or maybe they played a good Game 2, which just the other team played better. It doesn't mean Game 3 is absolutely going to go off of everything that happened Game 2. I just think that the reaction is so strong from game to game, and it's so extreme as well. And I relate that to, look, if they lose a playoff series together, I don't want the overreaction to be, they can never do it. I mean, that's an extreme. That doesn't mean that next year they won't take steps in their career. That doesn't mean the coach won't have an impact. That doesn't mean new guys will be able to do something different when it comes to role players. It doesn't mean maybe Tobias does a little something to his game as well. I mean, just because something happens in 1 year, it doesn't automatically mean it will never work for a 10 to 12 year career together. That's just absurd in my opinion. That's being frustrated, being annoyed, and not liking what you're seeing at the moment and thinking nothing will ever change. No. Things will change. Players will develop. Players will grow. If that's the case, let's go back to Michael Jordan. When you saw him in the Bulls lose to the Pistons, you would think for eternity that he will never be able to get past the Pistons, that he will never be able to win a championship. And look what happened. Guess what? Sometimes it just takes time. Believe it or not, it takes patience with some of these players. I hate the Embiid and Simmons can't work together crew. Ben will need to add to his game. so they can play more pick and roll together. So when he does do a pick around the big man as the primary ball handler, teams won't sag off of him completely, daring him to shoot a mid-range jumper. He's going to have to add that to his game because I think that's very crucial for him. But don't think that these two can never work, because maybe at times they got to figure it out, or maybe at times it looks a little bad, but guess what? That's called progress and learning from it and moving on and being able to use that information to take a step in the career. It doesn't happen with the snap of the fingers. You got to learn one another. They can't work together. That's nonsense. Do they struggle together with Al Horford on the floor with some bad spacing? Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But for the rest of their NBA careers, if they lose early this year, they'll never be able to work? Why? They made it to the second round of the postseason the last 2 years. I don't think you make it that far. And, oh, by the way, Game 7 and lost in a crazy formation there with Kawhi Leonard in Game 7 of the second round when Ben Simmons was how old? Early 20s? When Joel Embiid was how old? What was he, 25 at the time? Maybe 26 at the time, depending on when his birthday is exactly. You don't make it that far. A quadruple bounce away from the Eastern Conference Finals if you can't work together at all. That's crazy. It's crazy. And we'll end on this, actually. Speaking of Joel Embiid, if you don't follow him on Twitter, 1, come on now. 2, he's tweeting up a storm. He just got his driver's license. He's asking people about what type of car he should get. This dude's a riot. I mean, he's a riot. This is the type of stuff you just can't make up. And that's the beauty side of his personality. If Tobias Harris tweeted about getting a car, or Matisse Thybulle asking people about getting a car, it's different. Joel Embiid doing it, it's like, oh man, what type of car is he getting, by the way? I mean, imagine him in a little sports car trying to get in that thing. His head's poking out the sunroof, and he's driving with his foot on the gas with his head literally out of the sunroof. There's only so many cars that this guy could fit into. He might have to have it specially made. I mean, there's no way he's driving around in a Honda Civic with 200,000 miles on it. Unbelievable. I'll tell you what. So thank you guys so much for listening. One more time, this episode of Sports Talk with Broads is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. The program helps eliminate your electric bill completely. Their solar program. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. In addition, they will make sure you receive all the state and federal incentives available for switching to solar. Their information is in the description. Thank you guys so much. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you know where the comment section is. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or some other podcasting platforms, use the review system as a comment spot. I really enjoy reading what you have to say. Thank you one more time for listening, and I will see you next time.